Hello, everybody from Vittorio. Another incredible week for Lazio fan. Welcome on Lazio Lounge. We're ready to talk about Lazio. Plenty of things to discuss. Luckily, Alistair McKenzie, it's have been another positive week, right? A nice 3 points against Parma. We have to talk even about Lazio Verona on Wednesday. We didn't do the podcast. It's probably even better that we didn't do it because I can imagine the questions. Lazio's done, Verona's rubbish, and then what happened? A couple of days later, Verona goes and beat Juventus, and you know, I was thinking, have you ever seen Lazio so high in the table in February, Alistair?
Well, I don't think, I'm sure I saw something about how this is the most points they've ever accumulated at this stage of the season, so the answer is no. It is getting a bit scary now. it's getting a lot harder with each week to hold my opinion that I should essentially ignore any talk about a Scudetto race until March. I think I'm going to have to battle my way through February before I give in. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a strange one, like you say, for two games in the space of half a week. A 0-0 draw against Verona and a 1-0 win over Parma aren't results that stand out as being absolutely incredible. But those 4 points have put us in this position where all of a sudden this is seriously tight at the top of the table, and with Inter coming next, it's put so much more importance on that game.
Yeah, one thing funny is we said that these three matches were really important for Lazio, right? Spal at home, Verona, and Parma. We played these three matches. We didn't win all of three. Lazio got 7 points. The most incredible thing, Alistair, is after the derby, Roma was 7 points behind. Now it's 14 points behind. This is simply unbelievable. Who could expect that? Imagine that Lazio didn't win all the three matches. I don't know if I'm more surprised about this or that Juve is only 1 point ahead of Lazio now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that's making this even sweeter from a Lazio perspective, is that while they're managing to continue this run and grind out these results and accumulate these points, Roma are in a complete meltdown. And so in terms of talking about the Champions League race, which we have been talking about every week in terms of that being the objective and that being the gap that we want to broaden. But like you say, that conversation is getting to a point now, dare I say it, where it's almost becoming redundant, because that is a yawning chasm between those two teams, and it's going to take something very spectacular to let them regain that, and they don't really show any signs of being able to do that. But I mean, I think it's got to the point. Inzaghi was asked after the Parma game about the Scudetto, and he's kind of, you can tell he's similar to us in that he doesn't really want to talk about that yet. I don't think he's quite comfortable about talking about that yet or setting it as an objective. But I think that the best thing for Lazio at this stage, Vittorio, is just that being in this position allows them now to really just approach the rest of the season with just the kind of freedom and clear heads and confidence that the other teams don't have. With the pressure on Maurizio Sarri at Juventus, the pressure to win the league every year, there's pressure at Inter as well, even though it would be an upset for them to win the league in many ways. There's a lot more pressure there. They've got the Coppa Italia, they've got the Europa League. Lazio now can really just go into all these games and just try and play their game and do it the way they want to, because the pressure that Lazio have is to finish in the top four, and that is becoming more and more achievable every week.
I still not buying this. I mean, next weekend is going to be really, really important because Lazio's playing at home against Inter, and there is Atalanta-Roma. Obviously, if Roma loses against Atalanta and Lazio beats Inter, then it's going to be 70 points. Lazio would already have played against Roma and Inter, two top teams. I mean, with that gap, Lazio should lose 6 matches in a row and Roma wins 6 matches in a row. As Lazio lost only 2 matches this year in Serie A, Spal and Inter. How many other team do you think can beat Lazio at the moment? So I think next weekend is going to be really important. But as you were saying, Lazio come to this match with nothing to lose pretty much, because if you lose against Inter, you lose against a team that has been built for win the Scudetto, and you still have a big gap with Roma. While Inter comes to Rome knowing that they have to win because Juventus probably won't lose another match. And I saw the derby, the Milan derby, and the first half, Inter was rubbish. The second half, it was a purely meltdown, I would say. It reminds me a lot of Lazio matches with Pioli as a manager. So the curious thing is, neither Juventus, neither Inter are playing much better than Lazio at this moment.
No, that brings me to the first question we had from Jeppe Nielsen saying, how do you rate Inter and Lazio's schedule for the rest of the season? Do you think Juve and Inter will struggle with games every 3 or 4 days in the coming weeks? I suppose that's something I just touched on a little bit, but it is true, Vittorio. Those teams not only have European competitions left, but this week, for example, Inter are going to have to play Napoli on Wednesday in a cup semi-final, whereas Lazio have all week to prepare for this game. So how much of a difference do you think that's really going to make?
Knowing Antonio Conte, it can make a big difference, because let's not forget that one of the weaknesses, I would say, of Antonio Conte is he's not very good in the cup. In the last stage of Coppa Italia, he put all the starters, which is one of his problems, right? He tends to play always the same team. So I think that Inter will lose energy, obviously. And we know that if you have a week to prepare a match, it's much easier to prepare it. So this will be an advantage. And let's not forget that Juventus has the Champions League, and the main goal for Juventus this year is the Champions League. So I think there will be focus on that when the Champions League come back next week. So this is another thing that Lazio fan must remember. Same thing talking about Atalanta, because Atalanta is still in the Champions League. They have the chance to go through. So I think that Atalanta will still lose energy thinking about the Champions League. And at the same time, Inter is probably one of the favorite teams for the Europe League. I don't think they're going to fight to win the Europe League, but still they have to go abroad, play matches, etc. So I think they're going to lose energy. Now, I don't think Lazio is the favorite for the Scudetto. But, if Inter and Juventus keep playing that bad, you have a chance.
Yeah, and for me, I think this period coming up now is actually going to be decisive with that, because when we're talking about, yes, they've got more competitions to play in, they've also got a much bigger squad. So it's not the same thing as Lazio being in the competition that it is with Juve and Inter, despite how much Conte likes to complain about his squad depth. It's much better than Lazio's, and he can cope with it better if he chooses to. Like you say, that's the one doubt. But with this period coming up with Lazio Inter, like I say, having a full week to prepare while Inter don't. Then after that, with the Ludogorets games they've got coming up, Juve have the Champions League in. Then straight from those last 32 games, if Inter get through, they'll have last 16 games. Then there's the second legs of the Coppa Italia. I mean, I was looking at the schedule a bit earlier, and La Lazio Siamo Noi puts up a kind of an article about this with each game week, and then Lazio versus what Inter and Juve are up against, and it's crazy. That really puts it in perspective quite how much time Lazio have got now to prepare for these games. But the other thing, I mean, and for me actually, the main thing from this win over Parma, to bring it back to the game, was the fact that Lazio had so many players unavailable. The team that they picked you could say 4 or 5 of those players wouldn't be in a full strength team. And yet I think they still managed to play in the same style with the same kind of confidence. I don't think it was quite, by any standards, the most convincing Lazio of the season, but at the same time, they did what they've always done. You know, they're keeping clean sheets. That's twice in a week now. Parma didn't really threaten an awful lot. We can maybe talk about the penalty shout later. But then they created enough for me to deserve the win. Luis Alberto is incredible. And, you know, again, it's an example of edging a tight game that on another season, in another year, could have easily gone another way.
Two things. First, as you were saying, if we remember in the past, this was the moment where Lazio was dipping, right? Where Lazio was starting to lose his matches. And you can understand why, because Lazio never had the team Juve Inter have. And now, after 6 months of football, players get tired, players get booked, and you have Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. And you lose players, and the players that have been playing since August now are getting tired. So you can understand why in the past Lazio was struggling in this moment and why this year is different. So I think that this helps you understand why Lazio was losing in the past. The second point is, as you were saying, Lazio didn't play probably the best match against Parma, but still, Lazio had 3 great chances in the first half and at least other 3 in the second half. And Luis Alberto, that plays unbelievable, missed a couple of good chances. Correa, when he came in, missed a couple of passes that would have put Ciro Immobile in front of the goal. So really, this could easily be a 3-0 victory for Lazio. And on the other side, I think Strakosha made 2 saves in all the match. So, you know, we can talk about the penalty, but Parma is a very good team. I think this was one of the few matches that Parma allowed a goal at home. So, you know, this proves you how Lazio is playing good football. And as you were saying, this was just the 3rd time that Johnny was starting in Serie A. So, you know, I think this was the biggest test, you know, seeing if Johnny is a football player ready for this level. And I don't want to sound like a Roma fan that after 3 good performances of Under, he was the next Ballon d'Or player. But, you know, I think Johnny can be a very useful player. He played really well Sunday, attacking and defending. That we had question mark on his defending side. We don't know if Lulic is going to be able to play Sunday, but I feel safe with Johnny now.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely improved a lot. I think that, like you say, that was one of the most encouraging performances from that game. Also, I thought Marisic, coming back from so long out, did pretty well. Obviously didn't last the whole game, but his performance was better than I expected it to be, considering. Johnny, I mean, the thing is, he in my mind really needed that to happen, because if he's going to start against Inter, and by the sounds of things, it's looking quite likely at the moment that he'll have to, because Lulic isn't likely to be back in time. But you know, this all our kind of defensive concerns about Johnny essentially stemmed from the game against Inter last time we played them back in September, when he got out jumped by D'Ambrosio for the winning, what turned out to be the winning goal. And I think it's a bit unfair to, you know, look back on one moment so long ago, but obviously that kind of represented the concerns that we had about him defensively. I think he has improved, but I think that is still an area of the game that they'll look to exploit. And it's a big challenge for him, but it's been really encouraging to see that improvement. And I think we can feel a lot more comfortable having him start against Inter this time than last time. Other thing I should say is, how crazy is it that is the last time we lost a game in Serie A? Was that game the last time we played Inter? I think the 25th of September. I mean, that's 18 games unbeaten now. It's a new club record. And, you know, it's not been a difficult season for the stats, for the podcast, this one.
And you know what's the biggest problem, Alistair, is that fans are getting used to it. It's like, you know, yeah, we didn't lose since September. It's normal. It's not. It's not. Juventus that play with Cristiano Ronaldo, Dybala, Higuain lost against Verona last Saturday. Winning or not losing for 7 months is not normal. It's like yesterday I was reading on Twitter, people complaining about Ciro Immobile. Oh, he didn't score. He's done. He's finished. He's tired. 25 goals in the season and we have February. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't score that much, and people, if Ciro Immobile doesn't score in one match, you hear Lazio fans saying he's finished, he's tired, he's gone, he's rubbish. This is unbelievable. We are so used to see Ciro Immobile scoring, Lazio winning, etc. That is like, it's normal. It's not at all. And seeing Lazio at this point in the season, only 1 point behind Juventus and Inter, is simply unbelievable. I mean, only Lukaku cost like the summer transfer of the last 3 years of Lazio. Let's not forget about that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't ever take it for granted. I guess the thing is that the more something happens, the more you get used to it, isn't it? So there is an expectation, but I think that having these kind of runs does help raise the bar for the team, for the players. I mean, we talked before, and I said after the Parma game as well, that we really shouldn't ever underestimate how important the unity in this team is and the belief around this team is, and the atmosphere that Simone Inzaghi has helped cultivate in that dressing room. I think that has been absolutely crucial to the success they've had. And the more they're winning games, crucially, the more they're not losing games, for me, the more they're going to believe that they can do it, because they're not conceding many goals. And this brings me on to the next question we've had, is Alexander Mikkelsen said, what is the most surprising, that we, after 23 rounds, have the joint best defence in Serie A, or that we have other attackers than Immobile to decide matches? But I think that's such a good point, because those are two things that essentially, for almost all of Inzaghi's time at the club, have been the two biggest concerns. The defence, individual errors and stupid mistakes, giving away cheap goals, and then the Vice Immobile question. And both those questions have been solved this season by Inzaghi without changing his players who are available to him, really. It's amazing.
Well, I think the defence is the biggest surprise. We've been talking in the last couple of years about that, right? If Lazio could stop allowing stupid goals, then probably Lazio would reach the Champions League. And this is what's happening. Obviously, Acerbi is playing great football, but at the same time, we have to say that Luis Felipe had a great game Sunday against Parma. Strakosha is not making mistakes, and he made a couple of good saves, but nothing special. But if you remember, Luis Felipe last year, Bastos last year, were making, in some matches, stupid mistakes, and allowing stupid goals in Serie A. It's not easy, because you saw it against Parma. Lazio could have won 3-0. It won 1-0 because you wasted some chances. Parma had some occasion, but they didn't take it. This is football at high level. It's going to be decided by episode. So if Lazio improve on the defense side like they did this year, this can be a very important team. And let's not forget that already last year, in the second part, Caicedo stepped up and scored in the derby, scored against Sampdoria, etc. And this December as well, he scored against Juventus the decisive goal. So I still think there is not a Vice Immobile, but this team have improved in a lot of different ways.
Well, Caicedo's really stepped up, and this was something I wrote about last week, was the fact that one thing that Inzaghi's managed to do is improve those squad players. And when people ask about what the secret of Lazio's success is, it's there is no great secret. A lot of it is just down to the fact that Inzaghi, these guys who he's put so much faith in, and that faith has really been tested by fans like us questioning these things over the years, with Caicedo, with Bastos, with Patrick, all these guys, with Marusic. And the more time he spends with them, the better these guys get. And the reason they've stuck around so long is because he's known what he can get from them. You know, that's the difference between the reason that Danilo Cataldi is still at the club and the reason that Valon Berisha has been sent away is the fact that he has the right attitude and the right application and the ability to actually take on the messages that Inzaghi's giving him. And I think that Caicedo is obviously the clearest example of that. And the player he is now is a million miles from the player he used to be. But he also, for me, kind of represents this club's kind of, you know, determination and their will to win for me. I mean, the way he celebrates goals is like it's the first goal he's ever scored in his life. It's brilliant. And it's infectious. You know, I love watching Felipe Caicedo now because it seems to mean like as much or if not more to him than anyone on the pitch. And I think a lot of that is because he's had to work so hard to get to this point. And he's had to win over the fans. He's had to battle for every minute he's had on the pitch. He's had to battle for every goal he scored. And now you just see him and he's just this kind of inspiring figure for me. I love watching Caicedo. It's been an incredible turnaround.
I have to be honest. Sunday when he scored, he celebrated like he didn't believe it. So I was a little bit,
it's always like that. But
I was a little bit scared. Did they disallow the goal? Is he protesting? It wasn't that complicated, to be honest, to score that goal. But he celebrated like it was unbelievable. So, but again, the other thing is, Caicedo never scored that much before in his career. So, you know, no one was expecting to see Caicedo playing that well. Let's not forget that Luis Alberto cost 6 times less than Pastore, right? 5 million euros against 28.
Here comes the Pastore calculator again.
You know, let's not forget these things because Luis Alberto was a wasted player from Liverpool. You know, they didn't want him. They sent him on loan in Spain, and then Lazio came in and offered 5 million euros. They couldn't believe it. And now he's top assist in Europe. Yeah, you have to give credit to Tare because, you know, who thought that Caicedo would have scored so many goals and against big teams, right? So I think this is really important. And as you were saying, Inzaghi is able to make everybody part of the team. Maruzic come in and he's part of the team. Johnny feels at home. Patrick, it's another player of the, you know, everybody. While you can see, for example, Conte, when a sub come in, he feels like he's not part of the team. He's not playing with consider like the other players. So that's a big difference, I think.
Yeah, going back to the attack again, we did get a couple of questions on this. Madi said, obviously Ciro is tired and it affects his decision making and positioning. Madi says he's worried that Ciro can't keep it up like he did in the first half of the season. Then Benham Haidarshahi said he's got another question about Patra, but for now I'll stick on this one. It's his second part, which is that given Correa is 1m89 and physically strong, do you think he should improve his heading skills? And then finally, one last thing on the attack, Ibrahim Alberti says, we create many chances. I don't know why we don't score more goals. I think that's something we've come back to time and time again, really, haven't we? But what do you think? I mean, you can choose which one of those ones you want to answer, I suppose.
I don't think Ciro Immobile is tired. We simply have to understand that it's not possible that he continue to score that much. 25 goals in February, it's not something normal. It's something impossible to keep up. So if Ciro doesn't score in one match, it's absolutely normal. We shouldn't be surprised or worried. Same thing, the amount of goal. Well, it's not always possible to win 5-0 or 5-1 like Lazio did against Spal and Sampdoria. Juventus has Cristiano Ronaldo, Dybala, Higuain, and scored just one goal against Verona. So, you know, even other teams are not able to win all the matches 5-1. And sometimes it's luck, you know. Sometimes you're lucky and you hit the ball and it goes in the net the goalkeeper fails, or it goes somewhere where you weren't focusing on, etc. Sometimes instead the goalkeeper does an unbelievable save, you hit the post, etc., etc. Not always you're able to win 5-1. Let's not forget, after the derby, Roma fans were so excited. People said, we're going to end the season in front of Lazio easily. We're going to win the next 5 matches. We are playing great football. And they lost all the matches after the derby. So, sometimes you play a great match and then play rubbish for 2 months. Lazio is unbelievably, because last match Lazio didn't play well was probably against Spal. So before the defeat against Inter, because against Inter, Lazio played 65 minutes of great football. So, this is the thing unbelievable, because Juventus, Inter had ups and downs all season. Lazio didn't.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. After, essentially a bumpy start, it's just been pretty clear ever since September. Yeah, I mean, the goal scoring thing, I agree. I think that you have to remember we've won 2 of our last 3 home games 5-1. That's not normal. So I don't think we should be complaining about a lack of goals. I think that it's more concerning when the performances stop, when you stop creating chances, or when it feels like teams have kind of worked out the way you play. For me, Lazio haven't got to that point yet, because I think Lazio have a lot of different ways of playing, a lot of different answers to different questions, and that's part of the reason they've had the success this season and managed to win so many games in different ways. So for me, the performance against Parma was good enough that they could have won that game by more than 1 goal. Equally, they could have drawn that game, but I don't think it's a cause for major concern. And like you say, Immobile scoring 25 goals already, I don't think we're allowed to complain about that very much.
Yes, and let's not forget that Correa is not at his level. We didn't have Milinkovic-Savic. Lazzari came in all in the last, 25 minutes. We had a lot of players missing, and still Lazio was able to create a lot of chances. I think that's the most important thing, because we saw that Inter without Lukaku struggles. Cristiano Ronaldo is keeping up Juventus in the last 2 months, and they're losing points as well. So, as you were saying, if Lazio still create chances like Lazio did in the last matches, I think that's very positive.
Yeah, well, okay, a couple more questions. Daniel Choi, 15 matches to go. How confident is the 4th place at the end of the season?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm still not 100% confident. But at this point, Lazio has to lose 1 point per match to be below Roma now, if I'm not wrong. So, again, next weekend could be fundamental, because if Roma loses against Atalanta and Lazio don't lose against Inter, the gap is going to get wider. And I saw Roma against Bologna. I saw Roma against Sassuolo. They're really struggling. They're really having big problems. And I don't think Fonseca understood where the problem is coming from. So this is positive. So, I'm still concerned. I remember Lazio in the past. So this scares me a little bit, even though, as we said, there's not the Europa League this year, and it's a big difference being February, March without playing every 3 days. So I'm confident, but I wouldn't give it for granted.
Yeah, I think it's still too early to take anything for granted. Like you say, 15 matches, like you said in the question, is still a fair bit. That's anything can happen in that kind of time, which is why I've been wanting to hold off on any Scudetto talk for a long time as well. I think it gets down to the last 10 or so and you're still up there, then maybe you can begin to think about it. But we're only just past the halfway point of the season, really. Giacomo Colorulo said stress level for hosting Inter because mine is at a 10. And we did have someone else ask about Inter as well. Sorry, I can't find it right now. But yeah, I mean, how are you feeling about this game? And do you feel stressed about this, or is it kind of like I was saying before, a bit of a free shot?
I would love to beat the Fry, absolutely. 4-0 with 2 on goals of the Fry, that would be really amazing. But, I'm not stressed. It's like a bonus, right? Lazio did what they had to. Beating Parma was very important and was something that Lazio had to do. Against Inter, everything is, obviously, I'm not happy if Lazio loses, but would it change something? No. I mean, the season has been unbelievable. We still have a big gap for the Champions League spot. Again, I want to stress this. Inter have been built this year to win the Scudetto. Lukaku, Eriksen, and so on. They spent ridiculous amount of money. I don't know what the financial fair play will do this summer to Inter, because I don't think they respected at all. And still, Lazio is 1 point behind. Lukaku cost like all the last 3 winter transfers. I think summer transfer of Lazio. So let's not forget this. And still, Lazio can win it. I don't think it's impossible. I think at home, if Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto, etc. play well, Lazio can still beat Inter. So I'm not stressed at all. What comes is fine, obviously. I hope we don't lose.
Yeah, I think I think you're right. I mean, it's an opportunity really for this team to almost kind of set another example of what they can do. And if they're riding this wave at the moment, and it's almost like they just need to stay on it, because I think if they just continue doing what they're doing, they've got more than enough about them to get a result in this game. And I don't know, I do get a much bigger sense of stability from this team than I have done it with previous versions under Inzaghi, where you've got a lot more of the unpredictable to deal with, where you're not really sure what team's going to turn up. But especially in home games now, I just do go along to the stadium with a lot more confidence, because they just look so good at home almost every time they play there. And I know, obviously, getting a 0-0 draw against Verona wasn't the result a lot of people wanted, but they still did all right in that game. Very, very well organised, good Verona team who then went and beat Juventus. I mean, that wasn't the kind of gimme 3 points that a lot of people seem to think it was going into it. Yeah, I mean, it is an opportunity for Lazio, this, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to talking about stress, and I just think a lot more of that pressure is on Inter for this game than it is for Lazio. For Lazio, it would be totally outrageous to move ahead of Inter and go top of the league potentially. I mean, that is a completely nonsensical situation to be in when you compare the summer spending, like you say, when you can compare almost any element of the two clubs, it would be a ludicrous achievement. So I think that having that sense of freedom, if they can carry that into this game, it'll give them an even better chance.
Yeah, and let's not forget, against Verona, Lazio hit twice the post. Silvestri did 2 unbelievable saves. That match, again, Lazio could have easily won it. It's true that Strakosha made a couple of good saves, etc., but Lazio could easily won that match. So even there, Lazio wasn't very lucky. The other part is, and I don't know if you agree with me, I think Lazio have gained this confidence that it's not only us. I think the players know that they can beat any other team. They beat Juventus twice this season. They know that they can beat anybody if they're playing great football. And I think this confidence, it's an extra boost for the players. Luis Alberto yesterday after the match said, we cannot hide anymore at this point. They feel the confidence. they feel that they're not there for coincidence. They really deserve to be there. They're playing great football, and they can beat Inter, they can beat Juventus. So this is probably the difference. Last year, in the past, even when they beat Juventus in the Supercoppa, it was a sort of surprise. It was something unexpected. This year, when Lazio beat Juventus in the Supercoppa, the players weren't surprised. They thought they could have done it, and they did it. So I think this is the biggest difference. Milinkovic-Savic, Luis Alberto, Leiva, Immobile. They build the confidence, and all the other players of the team are convinced they can beat any other team. They know even if they go down, they still have chance to win till the last second. This is the biggest difference, I think, comparing Lazio now to the Lazio of last year.
Yeah, and I don't think we should downplay at all how important those Juve games you mentioned were, because I think as well, not just getting the 2 wins, but getting the 2 wins so close together, because the one at the Olimpico was amazing. It was incredible atmosphere, great performance, but there was definitely this sense, in the stands and from the celebrations on the pitch afterwards as well, where people almost couldn't believe this had happened, because it had been so long since a league win over them in Rome, and it was almost like there was this great anomaly had just occurred, this great one-off. So for the team to then only 2 weeks later go and pull off literally exactly the same result against the same team, I think said a lot, because that for the players would have been a moment where it's like, well, we're not only, we're not just capable of pulling off these results. We should be going into these games being with the belief that we will pull off these results, because if you beat Juve twice, that means you can beat anyone in Italy, I'm afraid, and they've shown the capability of doing that already. I think that there's nothing to really be that afraid of with this Inter team. I think they're a good Inter team. They've got a hell of a lot of weapons in that side, but even in the derby last night, they really showed their fragility in that first half. They showed their kind of, that they do have 2 sides to them, like the Borussia Dortmund game in the Champions League as well. They have had a few moments this season where they've really not turned up, where they've hidden away at crucial moments. And I think if the crowd gets behind Lazio and we've got our strongest team out and they carry that belief into this game, then it can take them a long way, because they've been there before, not that long ago, and they've done it. They've got these scouts.
Yeah, and again, talking about the derby of Sunday night, Milan made 2 stupid mistakes in the first 2 goals of Inter, and that galvanized the team, right? They suddenly scored 2 goals in 5 minutes, and the match changed completely. So I think Inter is a good team, but they're not invincible. I think, honestly, Juventus is a much better team. So I'm not saying Lazio will certainly win. Again, Lazio have to rely on Luis Alberto, Milinkovic-Savic, Ciro Immobile, Acerbi. And same thing Inter, because if Lukaku doesn't score, they struggle to score. So they're not an amazing team. I don't know if Eriksson will play. That's a question mark. And without Andanovic, they lose a lot in defense. Without Andanovic, their defense is not amazing. Godin is low. De Vrij, we know him very well. They're a good defense, but not unbeatable. So, and let's not forget that at San Siro, Lazio had 3-4 incredible chances, and on 3 of them, Andanovic was great. So, take off Andanovic, it could have been a different result.
Well, one question I wanted to ask you is, I suppose, around this game, one of the unknowns selection-wise is around who's going to partner Immobile, because Caicedo has started the last couple of games, but he's not been fully fit the whole time, and Correa is just coming back from injury now as well. So between the 2 of them, do you stick with Caicedo, who's already been starting recently, or do you chuck Correa straight back in?
Bobby. That's a good question because Caicedo had been subbed again. He wasn't fully fit. You can see he was tired in the second half. Uh, I didn't like Correa performance. He made too many mistakes, and this is something that happens to him when he came in the second half. Uh, so I don't know if it's not 100% fit Correa. He's not ready, etc. Um, I think they could split the match. One starts and the other one comes in the second half. Um, I think Correa can be decisive. I mean, he's so speedy, he's so fast. Inter defense is a little bit slow, so Correa and Immobile together could really create mismatch for Inter defense. So if Correa's fit, I would go with Correa, but I have a big question mark always. Obviously, I don't see Correa training, so I don't know if he's ready 100% or not.
Well, yeah, that's what it comes down to, really, isn't it? Is quite how ready for it he is, because we don't want to rush him back. That's already happened once, and it aggravated the injury, made it worse. So it is a big game, but it's not a game you want to risk players' fitness in, I would say.
No, because it's a big game, but Lazio has nothing to lose. So, I don't want to say you play the subs, but if you win it, it's amazing. If you lose, you still have plenty of points ahead of Atalanta and Roma. And you don't know if Juventus is going to win. They have the Champions League coming in, so maybe they're going to rotate a little bit the players.
I'd be amazed if Inter put any rotation into a game like this.
No, I'm thinking about Juventus more than Inter, even because Conte doesn't rotate nothing. So, but this is a problem. Why Conte never was able to achieve a good result with the Champions League? Because these days, if you don't rotate players between Champions League, Serie A and Coppa Italia, you will never be able to arrive at this stage with the players at good level. So I'm really curious to see what Antonio Conte will do with the rotation in the coming days.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions around that rotation and how it works at the moment as well, because he said himself publicly, Conte, that Eriksen is going to need time, that he's an intelligent player, but he is adapting to a more tactical league, to a new system that he's needing. He's needing him to work hard in attack and defence. And I think I get the sense that he's not entirely convinced by him yet. And he's managed to slot Ashley Young in pretty much effortlessly, which has been quite impressive. But Lautaro will be back as well. I mean, it's a strong team. Don't get me wrong, and their first choice team is a strong team. But I think Handanovic, like you mentioned, is an important one, because we saw yesterday what Padelli can do to help you out in the time of need. So, so I think we can maybe keep our fingers crossed that Handanovic's little finger stays broken for a little bit longer.
Yeah, can we say something? Eriksen doesn't make a lot of sense for Inter, because in the 3-5-2, where do you place him? So I think that's the biggest question mark with Eriksen. So I'm curious. And the other thing is, I don't want to talk about Scudetto, but even if Lazio loses against Inter, it's not over. Lazio still can win the Scudetto even if they lose against Inter. So, it's not a match point. It's not a final that or you win it or you're out. Still Lazio can do it, especially because, again, Inter is in Coppa Italia and Champions League, Europe League, sorry. So Inter paid a lot of money. They want to win something. So Conte has to try to win one of these competition. So maybe they're going to lose energy very soon. We saw them already playing bad against Lecce. So we're going to see what happens. But yeah, again, going back to the other question, I'm not stressed at all. Maybe Sunday I'm going to be, but at the moment, Lazio has nothing to lose. If we win, it's unbelievable. If we draw, it's great. If we lose, a little bit upset because I lost against the Fry. But apart from that, we're still third probably. So.
Well, definitely, don't worry. But once we get a points deduction, we will still be there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and like Milinkovic-Savic coming back is going to be big. Stefan Radu will be back available. I think one of the other positives of the Parma game that we haven't really talked about is the fact that we went into that match with Luis Felipe, Acerbi, and Immobile all one yellow card away from missing the Inter match, and none of them got booked. So that was a bit of a relief as well, if I'm honest. And yeah, I think that was one of the best games we've seen from Lucas Leiva this season as well. At times this season, I think we've questioned whether he was on the decline a little bit, but I think he's been brilliant recently, and that was a terrific game from him. So yeah, I mean, this team is still in very good form going into it, regardless of the fact that they've only scored one goal in the last two.
Alistair, would you keep playing like Lazio did against Parma with Luis Felipe in the central position and Acerbi on the left side? Because Luis Felipe had a terrific match and Acerbi was pushing a lot on that side. So that could be a question mark for the next match.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said I think that's Luis Felipe's best role, his natural role being in the centre. And you can tell as well that Inzaghi must think the same thing, or something close to it, because every opportunity he gets, he does like to do that experiment with Acerbi on the left. Acerbi loves playing on the left because he gets a chance to go forward, and he just loves it. But he had a really good game yesterday, I thought, doing that, like you say, pushing up the pitch and supporting the attacks. I wouldn't do it against Inter. I think we need a bit more defensive discipline against Inter. I don't think that having Acerbi going on so many forward forays up the wing is necessarily a good idea in that fixture. For me, I would revert back to the original tried and tested of Radu, Acerbi, and Felipe, with Acerbi in the middle. And yeah, I think Patrick has done a more than creditable job when he's had the chances, as has Bastos. But for me, I think that's still the strongest back three we've got, and the one that I would be picking.
Yeah, I think probably putting Acerbi on Lukaku is the perfect decision. We saw that Luis Felipe sometimes struggles. We saw it against Brescia with Balotelli, while in the other game against Inter, Acerbi was great against Lukaku, right? Lukaku didn't have a chance. So, yeah, and Radu back, I think Inzaghi is going to start him. Now, I think the biggest question mark is, will Lulic start or Johnny?
It's all down to fitness, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I think Lulic will start if he's fit enough. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but it doesn't sound good. Well, at the moment, you never know what can happen in the course of a week, but I think it's still quite promising, though, that would be the only, that would be the only change to what you'd say is the normal 11, because otherwise you've got Milinkovic back, Lucas, Alberto, Lazzari, Caicedo, Correa alongside Immobile, and then that back three in Strakosha. I mean, it's another great bonus to this season and this run we're on, and probably also down to the fact that we don't have any other competitions to contend with, that this team is fit. This team is staying in one piece and has been for most of the season. No serious injuries, a few knocks here and there, but it's, when you look across town at the other club in Rome, it's like night and day, really, the condition that they're managing to keep this team in. So that's been a real positive this season as well.
Yeah, let's not forget that last year at this point, Lazio was playing against Sevilla, and we played against Genoa that Jordao had to play. You remember? The situation was terrible. We had like 11 players out at this point last year. So, unfortunately, when you have a lot of competition, you get a lot of injured players. Last year, Lazio went out against Sevilla. What was it? Patrick played on the left side of the midfield because we didn't have options. So this is what you get when you play too many competition, you get a lot of injured players. This year, you're out of the Europe League, and let's not forget that Inzaghi did turnover since the beginning of the Europe League. We remember a lot of people complaining about that. Probably this is why we are now in February and all the top players are in form.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that this, we've said it before countless times, but I think this season needed to happen. We needed a year out of the other competitions in order to have the squad fit enough and available enough to make this real push for the Champions League. And the only hope is that if they do achieve that goal, that extra revenue is then put into making sure that Lazio do, from then onwards, have a big enough squad to deal with the three competitions. But that's a conversation for another time.
Do you have a stats to wrap it up?
I got one just on the back of the defence. We're talking about 2 clean sheets in a row, and across Europe now, Lazio are number 1, 2, 3, 4. They've got the 6th best defence in all of Europe. 20 goals conceded. It's the same as Inter, but they're Real Madrid, Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, PSG, and then Athletic Bilbao and Rem are joint on 19. So, yeah, I mean, the defensive record isn't just impressive for Serie A, but across Europe as well, and that is not something that we have been saying about Lazio in previous years. So,
no,
very happy.
Okay, Alistair, we can wrap it up here. Thank you again for joining me. And as usual, guys, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on Spreaker, on Spotify, on iTunes. Rate and review the podcast if you can. And we'll talk again after Lazio Inter. Thank you, Alistair.
Cheers.